A simple tomato sauce is on the menu today. We are going to be cooking together or meal prepping together for the next half an hour. You might want to head into your fridge as well and pull out all those dicey looking vegetables that are needing a little bit of attention. And we are going to meal prep and get ourselves sorted and ready so that we have at least one good, healthy, nutritious meal on the menu for this week. So I will see you on the inside where we get to hang out, chill, meal prep, or cook a tomato sauce together. I'll see you there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, if you are live here with me, welcome into my kitchen. And if you're catching the recording, watching this later, I am glad that you're here as well. If you are anything like me, January can be, or the holiday season, it can be a little hectic, a little intense, and January can feel just a little off. And I love the beginning of the year because it really does give us a chance to just reset, realign, and get us in the mode for where we are going for the year ahead. Holidays are lovely. They are heavy and hectic with a lot of the wrong type of foods that we shouldn't or don't normally want to consume. And so what can happen is that our digestion can feel off, it can feel a little weird, it can feel chaotic in our minds and in our kitchens. And what we're going to do today is just find a way to reset and rebalance. So it's not about rules and it's not about detoxes, it's not about being good, it's just about a gentle reset. And the way that I like to do this is just taking stock of what we actually have in our fridge, in our pantry, and not necessarily throwing everything out, but just figuring out a plan or a way to use up what is needing to be used up and what can be kind of like scheduled into the menu plan for later in the week. So we're not going to get into menu planning at all. You are welcome to join me in the kitchen. So ideally, you can head into your own kitchen. What I've done is I have literally taken out all the fresh veg that have been sitting in my fridge just to get a bit of an overview as to kind of like what there is and what needs doing and cooking. So what I realized when I was going through it is that I have a whole load of tomatoes. I don't actually like fresh tomatoes, to be honest. So I'm going to roast them. I really do love roasted baby tomatoes. And while the oven's on, I may as well actually make use of that and roast some butternut because I've got those. They're also needing using up. Now, roasted veg isn't necessarily, well, while I chat to you, you may as well wash whatever fruit or veg you've got going and chop up as I'm doing. May as well be, what's it called? Killing a bird with two stones. Terrible, terrible saying. But what I was saying is that roast veg may not be so like very Ayurvedically correct. That's okay. It doesn't matter. It is just something that I personally love. I love roasted veg, and they're also versatile because you can easily pop them into stews. You can make soups with them. You can add them to salads. And yes, they are a little bit drying because you've pretty much taken out all the moisture when you are roasting them. But hey, sometimes that's just what we feel like, and that's cool to go with the flow. So have a look in your fridge. Like, what are the veggies that are needing to be used up? There's something else that I found that was very, very sad. There's like this tiny little piece of broccoli, very, very sad looking broccoli. So I'm like, okay, well, that is going to really should get used up as well. And we're not big pasta people in this family. I'm not a huge fan. Craig doesn't like it as well. But every now and then we do make it. And I found a pack of like leftover pasta in the fridge. So I just thought, you know what? Let's do something super simple. Roast some tomatoes, make like a really nice, simple tomato-based sauce. Throw in a couple of veggies, like that very sad looking broccoli that could do with eating, and spice it up with a little bit of protein, throw in a tin of lentils, or if you don't have lentils, you've got some other beans in your pantry, do that. So yes, ideally we want to be soaking and having our beans fresh, but we're going with what is reality and what can be practically done. So keeping life simple and super, super easy. Whoa, I've got a stray tomato that is running. What I do enjoy with meal prep is slowing things down and not feeling like I need to rush or have to get something done quickly. And this is why I do enjoy like bulk meal prepping as well. Having a couple of sauces, doing big loads of what it is that I'm making, freezing them. So like last night when I didn't really feel like cooking, or yesterday I should say, when I had a busy work day, my full coaching day, I could just take out a ready-made lentil cottage pie and pretty much defrost that, and have a fairly nutritious meal on the go instead of going for a bread with cheese or something with peanut butter and munching on that. So I'm going to pop my tomatoes onto a roasting tray. There they all are. I do enjoy using the silicone ones. This one is well used. It is time to invest in a new one. But that's when you also know that stuff in your kitchen is being used or is practical if it looks like it is being used well. So I'm just going to throw these guys on here. I haven't even put the oven on, to be honest, but that's okay. It can warm up with the tomatoes as the tomatoes warm up. Probably not technically the right way of doing it. Let me be very, very clear. My background is teaching yoga and health coaching, wellness coaching. It is not in cooking. So I am as much of a beginner as probably more of a beginner than you are, and pretty much just going with the flow, learning as I do, playing around with what I have. So I love to add a little bit of vinegar to my tomatoes when I'm making tomatoes. And I think I'm actually going to do a bit of balsamic vinegar. So maybe a little bit of olive oil first, and throw that on just to kind of coat the tomatoes. Plus I know that I'm going to be popping them into that pasta a little later, so a little bit of extra oil's not going to go amiss. I'll throw a little bit of this nice balsamic vinegar on. It's nearly finished. Better add that to my shopping list for the week. And some black pepper. I'm not going to add salt because I think salt makes it a little mushy, like it draws the water out. So let's go with this. If I want to add it on a bit later, I can do that. So let's throw those into the oven. So if you're cooking along with me, maybe you've also finished chopping up some veggies. Maybe you're also planning on throwing something into the oven. We can get that going. I have a very handy stick here because my oven does not close. This is farm life for you. And then, like I said at the beginning, since the oven is already on and making roast veg, I may as well actually just pop a butternut or two in there as well to go along with the roasting. Jeepers, butternut is not easy to cut. So there we go. I think what I want to be making tonight is, or for later, or for tomorrow, let's see how it goes, is a roasted butternut soup. I haven't had that in ages, and I really do enjoy it. Not going very well with this butternut. Anyway, we'll get there. And I think normally how I make roast butternut is just cut it into blocks, but
bit lazy, not in the mood for that. So I think what I'm going to do is just cut it in half. It's looking like not the greatest, so maybe it wasn't a bad call to make roast to roast the butternut. It's not looking like the happiest guy. And let's pop the pips out here. What I do realize is that, you know, with December and the crazy holiday season and things like that, is that we end up eating a lot of the wrong type of food. Now, that's not really the end of the world because our body is quite resilient and we can get over it. The problem often is that we are out of rhythm with how we are eating. Well, at least that's what happens to me. Like when I'm here at home, and I think I'm going to do another butternut. There should be enough space on that tray. When I'm at home, I pretty much have fairly regular rhythm of eating. It's kind of like, you know, wake up, always have some form of breakfast. This butternut's not looking too happy, but anyway, we'll give it a go. We'll see what happens. We'll see if it works out. And then lunch is always around noontime, and it's usually a nice big lunch. And then there's something light for dinner, nice and early. And that's the normal rhythm. However, when you are traveling, when you're visiting family, friends, they often have a very different eating time. I thought there was a worm in here, but it's not. It's just a pip that has sprouted already. Cheap as I got it fried. I've never seen that before. Anyway, take that out. So I was talking about rhythm, and rhythm really is so important. If you find that you are, like me, a little out of sorts, it probably has to do with not being in sync with your circadian rhythm. Yeah, this one really doesn't look great at all. So we'll send that to the, what's it called? The compost heap. Where was I going? Onion, great one. This should be really nice and easy to do with the butternut. With rhythm, when we are in rhythm with the day, our life, that is pretty much half the battle won. We don't have to worry. We're not kind of like fighting two battles, I should say, because we're using the rhythm of nature. And when the sun is high, that is when we should be eating our main meal. It's when digestion is the easiest in our body. And often when we are hanging out with family, it ends up being late dinners, rich dinners. In South Africa, we have a lot of braais, barbecues, starchy meals. And, you know, once in a while, it's fine for the system. You know, our systems are built, they're resilient. They can, you know, navigate this. But if we do it too often, that is often where the challenge sets in. And so it's more, I find January is more about you just, you know, getting back to your rhythm, getting back to your healthy eating habits, making sure that you're having your meals, that you're meal spacing, you're not snacking between meals. That's one thing that I find, that as soon as I go out of rhythm, I will start to get hungry and start snacking in between meals. And it's not great for your system. You really want a good 3-4 hours between your meals for your body to be able to finish digesting, and then allow the next meal to be digested properly or fully. It's just a little tip. And when at least when I am traveling and hanging out with people who don't eat the way I do, which is pretty much most people, and eat at timings that I like to eat, it can become quite stressful on the system. And instead of being dogmatic about it, kind of like I just go with the flow. It's easy. I know that it's just going to be for a week or so, and then when I get back home, then I can get back into rhythm. And that's pretty much what we're doing here together, is just, okay, let's have a look what is in the fridge, what is needing using, and let's pop that into our ovens, into our pots, and make life happen. So I've cut open a couple of butternuts. I've popped some onion in those, seasoned them with olive oil, salt, pepper. And what I'm going to do, actually I'll use those later. I'll grate those later. We'll just throw that in. Maybe what I'll do is just cut this onion in half and add that there. No, maybe not. I'll use that in the sauce. So that can go into the oven with those little baby tomatoes where they're hanging out. Whoopsie. Pop those in there. Those little tomatoes look like they're doing a good job. And then let that stuff do what it needs. When I find if I make quite a lot, that means that at least for like 2 meals, the next 2 days, I'm sorted. So I'll rather spend a little bit of extra time in the kitchen doing a little bit of meal prep, making slightly bigger meals or dishes that I can then either freeze or eat for a couple of days, so that I don't have to spend all my time in the kitchen. And so that was one of the reasons why, to be honest, I actually decided to start doing this live, is that it's going to create a sense of accountability for me to show up and to cook, because I want to, one, start getting better with meal prepping, as well as, this is going to sound crazy, meal shopping, like meal planning, having things on the menu that are not going to result in me having, like, what are those things called, gem squash in the fridge for like 4 weeks. Like, that's really not necessary. Just get organized with what's happening, and that will make life so much easier. It's going to save space. It's going to save on food waste and food costs. So yeah, that's would be my suggestion. All right, let's get a little hydrated. I did make some lemon water. Which is not bad. If you find that you get dehydrated easily or quickly, then adding a little bit of salt into that, especially for those of you who are in hot, humid climates like me, that can be helpful. It's like your natural electrolyte. You don't have to worry about getting any rehydrates or those kind of things. Just throw in a squeeze of lemon, a little bit of salt, and there's your natural rehydrate. So if you're hanging out on the beach with kids, or instead of getting all those sugary juices, just head off and make your own. All right, so what have we got? I'm gonna start making a little bit of this sauce for the pasta while that stuff is in there, cooking away. And I think what we're gonna do is, I've got some very sad carrots, so I'm gonna add those into there as well. I've popped onion in. I quite like the taste of onion, so I think I'm actually gonna do another onion. And this is the nice thing when it comes to meal prepping and not necessarily following like a strict recipe, is this is where you get to be creative and have fun in your kitchen. You can be, you know what, at the moment, I'm quite in an onion mood, and that's what my system or my body feels like. This is where we start to move more towards like the intuitive eating, the intuitive connection of what it is we're needing, what it is our bodies are wanting, what it is that we're craving. And instead of having to be rigid and dogmatic about menus and recipes, we get to be a bit more playful, a bit more creative. And for me, I always think simplicity is the best, the easiest. So if anything, if a recipe is too complicated, there's too much happening in there, there's too much variety, there's too much change, there are too many herbs and spices that are unfamiliar or not in my pantry, then I just lose interest, I suppose. And when it comes to nutrition, I always think that like variety is key. So getting in as much variety as possible, but also keeping it super, super simple. Like I just said, whoa, without cutting off the finger, I must say, it is actually quite fun and quite a nice challenge to be multitasking. So like chatting and cooking. This is like what it's like, when you have friends over and you've got this like nice open plan kitchen and you just chatting together, cooking together. You kind of lose yourself in the process. You might be adding one or two different types of items into the mix that you weren't planning, and that is all cool. There's always something to be said about finding the stillness in when we are cooking, when we are doing something. And then there's also the opposite, the yin and the yang, of finding the joy of being in community when we're hanging out with others and having those conversations. I'm going to give these little carrots a bit of a scrub. So I'm not a huge, just because I don't enjoy peeling, I'm not a huge vegetable peeler kind of gal. So I'm just going to scrub. I've got this really nice like vegetable scrubby brush that I got ages ago. I actually need to try and find a new one because this one works so well. And I haven't come across another one. So I'm hoping that, or when I do, I'll get rid of that old one. But that one is, again, still working for now. So that's absolutely fine. Let's throw in a little bit of garlic into the onions that are just busy sauteing there. And there were some things that I was thinking of sharing with you guys. Just trying to see what it is. But one of the things that I think I really wanted to remind, not just you guys of, but myself as well, is that when there is chaos in our life, so when there is clutter in our fridge, in our kitchen, in our pantry, that often reflects as mental clutter in our minds. And as soon as we spend a little bit of time bringing order into our environment, and a great place to start, I find always, is the kitchen, because this is the heart of the home. This is where the nourishment happens. This is where you nourish your physical body. This is where you nourish your spiritual body. And when the pantry, when your fridge, when your kitchen doesn't depict who you are wanting to become in this next year, then you're going to keep eating those things and filling your pantry with those things that are keeping you stuck, that are keeping you where you are. And again, it's just an insight, just a realization. And it doesn't mean we have to throw everything out. Again, it's like pasta, not the greatest thing to be eating, but you know what? I don't particularly want to have to throw food out. So let's just see how we can beef up a meal, make it delicious, make it enticing, and throw in a little bit of protein. So yeah, I wish you could like smell what's happening here. The sautéing of like onions and garlic is absolutely delicious. It's absolutely divine. And if I had fresh tomatoes, I would probably definitely be using them, but I don't. So I'm just going to use a very simple tin of tomatoes. We go with what we have. If you're like me and you haven't managed to get to the shops since you got back from your holiday, use some of the staples that are in your pantry. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what they're there for. Okay, I'm going to bring down the temperature a little. But again, what I was saying is like clutter in our lives often just means that, let's see if we can open this up, that there's no clarity. The trick that I have with the bottles is I'm just going to tap the lid on the ground. There you go. That is simple and easy. If you are like me and struggling to open jars, giving them a little tap on the ground works. That is one thing that I have noticed in perimenopause, is that my grip strength has definitely gotten weaker, and why I am absolutely loving doing weights and weightlifting to try and build up that grip strength again. Because I don't know, in my 20s, you give me a jar, I was like a guy, I could like crack it open, no problem. And I was wondering, like, why is my mom always, asking me to open this, or asking, why couldn't she just do it herself? It wasn't that difficult. Anyway, let perimenopause kick in a notch, and then now I understand what is happening. And two things that I really believe make a difference with regards to that is not being scared of weight and weight training, and not being scared of protein. And so that is why I always try to add in a little bit more protein into each of my meals and to get that happening. So that's why I was saying, you know what, if you're going to be making a tomato-based pasta sauce, you may as well throw in a tin of lentils or chickpeas just to beef it up a little. If you're plant-based, that's the easiest way. If you are not plant-based, no judgment on anyway. There is no wrong way, right way, better way. It just is what works for you. You can always throw in a little bit of mince or something like that. Right. I've also learned that I do not become precious with trying to get to the very end of grating carrots, because my fingers are a little bit more precious to me than the last little bit of carrot. And plus the last little bit of carrot I can just munch on once we have finished cooking together, which you can munch on if you're busy grating carrots as well. So this is, I think sauces and stews are a great way of getting veg in without it being like a vegetable thing. So especially those in the family that aren't huge veggie eaters. If I make, Craig is like, he loves his meat and he loves like cottage pies. And I can very, very easily get in a lot of like carrots, a couple of beans, lentils in there, mix it up so there's different forms of protein and fiber that his gut kind of microbiome can work on and digest. And it's not about hiding it as much as just, getting in a variety of veggies that we need. And sauces and stews are a great way. Now, if you're not used to adding in, for example, carrot into your tomato sauce or base, then just do one. Not like me, like I've done 3 now. You don't need to do that many. Just do one. Notice the taste, notice the texture, see if it changes anything for you, and if you like it or not. But I must say, grated carrot literally just dissolves into nearly nothing, and it is a great way. But then again, carrots are a very sweet, delicious vegetable that I don't think most people have a problem eating. So, but you could do, I suppose, the same with zucchini. I'm going to do the same with like this very sad-looking piece of broccoli. I will add that in there as well. Maybe you've got cauliflower or something like that sitting around. I'm going to add this towards the end though, because you don't really want broccoli to be hanging out. You don't want it to get. It is better, put it this way, I think, if it goes towards the end. I think it's, what's the word? It retains its nutritional value a little bit more. So I forgot to add, because I've been chatting with you guys, I forgot to add in spices into the mix when I was sauteing the onions and tomatoes, and the carrots are going there now. So maybe a little bit of black pepper, always great. Salt, especially for those of you who are out at sea or on a farm or in very humid conditions, salt is always a good one. Then one of my favorite spices that I am playing with at the moment and literally throwing into everything. I even made oat, like a little oat roll this morning, and I threw in a little bit of turmeric. There it is. I think that is great for inflammation. We all have so much inflammation after December or after the holidays, especially if you've been eating things that you don't really want to be eating. I can definitely feel that my body is a little stiffer, a little more lethargic. And as much as, turmeric capsules are probably a great supplement to take, it's so easy just to get it in your food. So if you're cooking with it, making food with it, just throw in a little bit of black pepper. And if you're having that regularly, just imagine what will happen if you add a little bit of turmeric to every meal that you make this year. By the end of the year, you probably would have had so much more turmeric in your diet, and that's helped with anti-inflammation. And you haven't had to now go buy expensive tablets or pills or anything like that. You've just added it in very easily, and it doesn't actually change the taste or flavor, I don't feel, of the meal too much. Yes, it is quite an astringenty, like bitter taste. And you definitely will be able to tell if you overdo it, but it is in small doses. I don't think that it's that unpleasant and that you really notice it all that much. So give it a go, and you can always let me know what you think. I threw some mixed herbs in there. I've got a little bit of oregano as well, which has come to a dear end. Again, something to add onto my shopping list. I always have a list nearby in my kitchen of, especially when it comes to spices, things that are running low and that I need to keep an eye out on. Generally, I try to have a backup in the pantry of everything. I try. I don't always have it. And not necessarily like spices that take quite a while to get through. Again, spices, probably not the way like I just did that with like throwing it over hot. You actually want to take it out first, because otherwise what happens is if you open it up and you're using your spice like that, all that steam goes in and then it can make your spices moldy. They say you shouldn't really have spices in your pantry longer than 6 months. So, and that you should then get rid of them. Again, what what is said and out there versus what is practically usable and doable, you decide. But that's the nice thing when we get into our kitchen regularly and use things, is that we can use them up and replace them easily. All right, that's doing its thing. I'm going to just let that bubble away in its own time. Then I'm going to throw on a pot of water, use up the leftover pasta, and let's see how those tomatoes are coming along that were in the oven. Butternut is very far from ready. It has got a long way to go. These little tomatoes are looking quite good. I do love roasted tomatoes. Let's give those a little mix around in that balsamic vinegar that we put them in, and the oil. I like my tomatoes very, very roasted, so they're going to go back in for probably another, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. We'll keep an eye on them. There we go. We'll use that fancy oven closing stick. And that's pretty much it with regards to, you know, what we're going to be playing with today. The idea is just to take time today, find out what is in your fridge, what needs cooking. The easiest way that I find to use up veg is to roast it. So if there's stuff that you're needing, roast it, or make a very basic tomato sauce like we've just been doing. And that's where you can then add in your things like your broccoli that are maybe needing to get eaten up very soon, carrots, anything like that. And I think tomorrow what I'm probably going to do is you look at the next thing that is very, very sad. I've got a couple of like baby cabbages here and like a red onion. I already put that aside. So I'll make a nice coleslaw with that. And then just really get back into the kitchen. Menu planning is key. So now that I have an idea and I can see what I've got and the bases that I've made, I can get into sitting down, planning a nice menu for the week ahead, knowing what I need to get from the shop so that I don't have to overbuy. And yeah, and if you enjoyed that, then I will be here again next week and we can cook together. You can let me know if there's something in particular that you'd like to cook and we can spend half an hour together cooking that together. Otherwise, again, just 30 minutes in the afternoon. We can meal prep together. It might just mean cutting a couple of veggies so that you have got veggie sticks ready and on the go. Maybe making a little bit of a hummus so that you've got that for dipping in. Maybe it's a salad dressing, but it is always fun to do it with someone and and have a chat and hang out. So that is it from my side. I look forward to connecting with you. For those who would like to connect a little bit more in detail, I have a Skool community. There is that QR code over there. You're welcome to scan that, join the Skool community, and we can hang out a little bit more. And I shall be sharing the recipes that I am using in that Skool community. So if you want to follow something with somewhat of an outline and not completely random, then that is where it'll be. But for now, I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Sending you so much love. Take care and catch up soon. Bye.